what did you mean when you wrote this? Churches may have concentrated on individual salvation at the expense of the collective. What do you mean by that?
Well, the people ask you, or billboards ask you, if you are saved, and I think churches are almost in the position of concentrating on individual salvation because their structures are basically the same as the structures around them, where I think Jesus teaches a different sort of structure. I think it's distinctive, it's a different culture.
It's interesting because Jesus spent a lot of time with individuals as well as crowds, and from the angle I'm sitting in, I see the church does the same thing, that churches spend time with crowds as well as the individual.
Yes, well, it's not just crowds, it's the way society is organised, and Jesus said, be in the world but not of the world. So, okay, we live in the world, and society out there that isn't interested in following Jesus, they still need help from time to time, and if we got together we could show them a different way of living.
You don't go to church, do you? Why have you stopped going to church?
Well, because I wasn't getting anywhere. I feel the church is stuck in a sort of groove, waiting for Jesus to come back and fix everything. And I think we've been given, Jesus gave us instructions, if you like, or a guide, like do it yourself. We know what we should do, but we don't seem to be able to get out from under and do it and be the city on the hill.
And one of the teachings of Jesus is, though, that we shouldn't forsake the fellowshipping together. So where does that fit with you?
Well, we should be doing it together. That is the fellowship.
Fellowshipping together?
You mean going to church and things?
Being together.
Oh, being together. Yeah, well, I think
together.
Yeah,
being accountable together.
Yeah, that's what I think it's about. Yes, sharing the material things and the responsibilities, yes, and we're accountable to each other and to God, yes.
So do you advocate not going to church?
No, not necessarily, because the church is preaching the gospel, but I think we need to do more than just preach it and listen to it. I think at 1 hour a week or maybe 2 hours a week, it's a matter of living every day according to the teaching. And I think the worshipping is, well, worshipping God, to my way of thinking, is doing what God wants us to do, which is what Jesus taught.
Now, sorry, I've just lost my space here. Why did you write the book?
Well, because I wanted to reach as wide an audience as possible, and because I believe very strongly that Jesus' teaching is about a viable way of living, an alternative society to what we see around us.
What do you want to achieve with it?
Well, ultimately, a group of people who are prepared to give it a go and organise their lives. The structure, their basic structure, they're looking after each other and shining, if you like, yes, not just in a small corner.
And so how do you expect people to respond to your book, maybe even Christians who think that, well, you don't go to church, but you wrote a book on Christianity. Why should they be interested in that?
Well, because they believe, or they say they believe in Jesus, and they pray every week or every day, thy kingdom come, God, God's time, God's kingdom came, sort of thing. I just hope they'll have another look at Jesus' teaching. Don't have to take my book, but I hope it will reintroduce the ideas, though they'll reconsider and perhaps feel that, yes, they could go a bit further than what they're doing now.
It's a bit of a handbook, the book, isn't it? So
yes,
you've not only got chapters in there where you're talking about different topics, but you've got references that people can look at. Can you tell us how people can use the book?
Oh, well, I think possibly, read it through, maybe have a look at the appendix first, which is Jesus' teaching organised into what is acceptable, and then there's a section on what isn't acceptable.
On how to live your life,
How to live your life, yes, behaviour, and there's a bit about attitudes. But refer to the teaching as reported in the New Testament of the Bible. I use several translations because I think different people have different view of, but the message shines through regardless. I think it's hard to avoid, but I think it shines through with a bit more punch in a modern translation. I mean, the authorised version, it's very easy to just sit back and think this is beautiful poetry and this belongs to another age because we don't talk like that anymore. So that one of the modern translations, I think, is probably a bit more punchy.
And of course, last week we talked about is our country morally declining, and we're even going to be talking about violence in a few minutes with Martin Elliott. So do you believe that the teachings of Jesus can make a difference to our society?
Oh yes, I think they can. Well, they have in a way. I mean, we don't send little boys up chimneys anymore. We do have slaves, but it's not quite the same as slaves were. So yes, I think it can make a difference so long as Christians get together and show. It'll make a big difference for people. I think people already find it's a difference in their lives, in their families, and there are some groups working together in this way. It just needs, the more there are, the more difference it will make. It certainly makes a difference with people living in those groups.
Absolutely, yes. And we looked at stats too, saying that 25% believed that it influenced their lives.
Yes, well, look at Jesus. Don't get too confused with the rest of the Bible because...
full of people like us.
Yeah, it is. Yes. But Jesus kind of distills takes out all the dross that got added as it came through between him and Moses. Yeah.
Thanks so much for coming on the show. Congratulations on the book. Well done.
Thank you very much.
And Katherine has kindly offered a free book for the first person to email in-depth@tvmg.co.nz. Send in your contact details, and if you're first, the copy is yours. You can also purchase it online. Just go to books.nationwidebooks.co.nz or fishpond.co.nz. It's now time for our Community Watch. This is your opportunity to support the police in keeping our neighbourhoods safe. Northern Waikato Police are still looking for Christopher Hemi Mahara of Ngarawahia for multiple charges. Age 32, Mahara is Maori, 150 centimetres tall and of thin build. Also 42-year-old Wakina Walter Turner, Maori, 180 centimetres tall, medium build, with an extensive criminal history, access to firearms and links to gangs. Anyone with information should call Crime Stoppers 0800 555 111. After the break, we're going to be joined by educator Martin Elliott, and we'll be talking about girl violence. We'll see you shortly.